Lifestyle modification, I'll start with a definition. Really what that means is that involves altering habits, which typically include nutrition, physical activity, and maintaining those new behaviors long term. The lifestyle modifications can be used to prevent and treat a range of health conditions, including obesity. So a couple of key words here that I just want to make sure that I preface the rest of this with so that everyone has in mind is altering habits for long-term results. So what we're talking about here is not doing a quick fad diet or a 30-day challenge. Those are okay. That's a whole nother thing and for a whole nother reason. We're talking about truly changing your lifestyle for long-term results. So let me introduce myself. First of all, again, my name is Marcus Bailey. My passion is turning my own personal 15-year health journey and education path into practical and straightforward information for others. You know, as a disclaimer, as Dr. Brown said, you know, this is for information and education purposes only. So I certainly would defer when someone has an acute scenario or an acute symptom to go to a primary care physician. My goal really is to help as many people as possible make the decision to take control of their health and wellness. And the key being make a decision to take control. And we'll talk more about that. So ultimately, my approach is to make things simple and relatable so that the health journey that you take is more enjoyable and easier to stick to long term. It feels like something that's manageable. You understand it. It makes sense. You can relate it to other areas of your life, which I'll use several examples as we go through. So what we're going to talk about is we will start with what we believe now, kind of our current set of beliefs and just a few of the paradigms that we operate within right now when it comes to health. We'll maybe look at a couple of things differently and maybe put a different spin on something that you may have taken for granted or something that you've just kind of done subconsciously in terms of diet and in terms of nutrition and exercise. Also, we'll talk about a couple of things that you can do now, easy things that you can do today in the spirit of that, taking something away or adding something easy to really start you down that path. Because ultimately, like the book, The Compound Effect, better health, better life, success in any aspect of your life isn't about doing a complete 180. It's about stacking habits on top of each other, doing one thing that leads to two, that leads to four. You look back a year or two and you're far ahead of what you thought you could be. And then the last thing, I want to give a couple of things. I want to be very honest and transparent about some things that you can expect as you get started. So let's talk about what we believe now. Some of this is cultural, some of this is societal, but you've got this battle between the fork and the family. So the fork being, and that kind of represents the level of personal responsibility that we take, how much impact we believe we can have on our own health and wellness. Now that's to a varying degree. Some people believe you can have a lot of impact. Some people believe, hey, you know what it is. My family has this, therefore I'm destined, I'm guaranteed, I'm doomed. And that's the other side of it. The degree to which we believe family health history, genetics, and heredity play in our health. And this isn't for all scenarios, but this next slide is going to go based off of a recent study done by the National Institute of Health. They gave a breakdown of health determinants. And these health determinants simply say, what percentage in general do these things play on your health outcomes? So the first thing is medical care and services. So obviously, access to a primary care physician, being able to speak to someone like Dr. Brown and have access to the insurance and the means to access those services are important. So that's 10 to 20%. Genetics, that plays a part. You may have some genetic predisposition to some things. Certainly, it is a factor, but far less than what maybe a lot of us thought. So 20%. Another thing is socioeconomic. So an individual's position can be, shaped by things like education, occupation, income. So that plays a part because you just might be in a scenario like you're in a food desert. You may grow up on a side of town where there is very little access to fresh food and fresh produce and all those different kinds of things. So the next thing is physical environment. We certainly deal with that: outdoor air pollution, household pollution, drinking water, occupational exposure. Dr. Brown talked about asbestos. That's not something that we necessarily have to deal with much now, but there still are occupational hazards. But I want to really focus on behavior and lifestyle. So as you can see, individual behaviors such as substance abuse, diet, and physical activity play a major role. That's 50 to 60%. Something I'd like to point out, let's just say socioeconomic conditions aren't really a factor for you. You may live in a good place. You may have insurance. You may have the education and the occupation that facilitates good health. Where does that percentage go? So if that 10 or 20% doesn't affect you, or if your physical environment does not affect you, where do those percentages go? You can't put more into genetics. So as soon as you start making more money, your genetics don't kick in and say, hey, well, since you've got insurance, I guess I need to, come up with some worse conditions. So that's where that all needs to go in the lifestyle. You have the opportunity to really stack the deck in your favor. How much of it can you control? So let me give a couple of statistics here. The leading causes of death worldwide are chronic diseases, things like cancer, cardiovascular disease, COPD, diabetes, stroke. About 80% of chronic diseases are driven by lifestyle and factors such as diet and exercise. And that's from the Cleveland Clinic. So my point here is don't focus on the 20%. You've got 80% control over what happens and over your health outcomes. So don't focus on the 20%. We have a lot of say in terms of what happens to us. So the next thing is what we believe now, or in that spirit, is age equals condition. So we've got kind of a thought that the passage of time determines biological aging. So if that's true, then why is it possible for some people to look good for their age? If it's not true, then why do we give so much credit to age when we experience certain conditions? So I'm 40 plus, I'm 43. So I've got people who, and you all know people who at 40, 30, 40, 50 will say, hey, you know what? I just hit that age, things start hurting. I'm at that age where X. And we just automatically attribute it to age because we just think as soon as you hit a certain point, things just have to break down and things just have to go wrong. I want to give an example here with type 2 diabetes. And this is information from the American Diabetes Association. And I'm not going to go through in great medical detail, but I just want to point something out. First of all, type 2 diabetes used to be known as adult onset diabetes. Keyword being onset, meaning it comes about. It doesn't, you don't walk outside, someone sneeze on you and say, look, hey, keep that diabetes to yourself. There's no public health, thing saying, hey, wash your hands or else you're going to catch diabetes or anything like that. Diabetes is something that progresses. And these are the 5 stages, according to the American Diabetes Association. I'll start at the left, where when you look at compensation, that's really the stage where, based on the fact that we are over insulinated or hyperinsulinemia, as we talked about, during Dr. Brown's Q&A, we just are always eating things that are sugary, things that create an insulin response, things that create an exaggerated insulin response, down to the point where your body says, hey, listen, I see you're going to be eating this stuff all the time, so I'm going to start sending out twice as much. I know that I'm going to need a lot, so I just kind of get used to sending out more than what I need. Then you get to the point where you start getting into that insulin resistance piece, where even though your pancreas is sending out the hormone, your body's like, look, I'm not responding like I used to. So now you get into this back and forth where you're shooting out more insulin and your body's not responding to it as well. All the way over to the point where when you get really to the severe decompensation phase, that's where you got people who are insulin dependent. They absolutely cannot manage their diabetes without getting insulin shots. Now, a lot of times people just have to kind of watch what they eat, maybe at that stage 4 where they're just checking their insulin and all those different kinds of things and watching their diet. But my point is, this is a progression, and anything that's a progression means this happens over time. So it doesn't happen at the same rate for everyone. But what we may think diabetes is, hey, it runs in my family. The fact is the habits run in your family potentially, and your Dad got it, your granddad got it, your aunt got it, your mom got it. They all got it about the age of 35 or 40. And you may too, because you all have done the same thing for the first 30, 40 years of your life. You've eaten the same thing for the first 30, 40 years of your life. So it takes that same amount of time for your body to say, hey, look, time is up. I've had it. I'm moving through these 5 stages. And now all of a sudden, here we are. So I wanted to point that out, that things like type 2 diabetes is a progression. So something else that we believe is what's done is done, and that just kind of talks about we're just stuck with the conditions that we have. Um, you know, it's hard, if not impossible, to lose weight once you hit a certain age. I hear that a lot. Hey, I'm a certain age, man, this weight just won't come off. It's just hard, if not impossible, to lose weight or to do this once you hit a certain age. And people will talk to young folks, hey, man, don't get fat like me, because once you hit my age, you'll never be able to lose it. So we kind of have this thought that once you hit a certain point, you're stuck. You're frozen in time, and you're just doomed to suffer from whatever it is that you have. Let me flip away from health real quick. Let me give a financial and career success example. Stan Lee, Marvel, we all love the Marvel universe. He created his first comic at the age of 39, or just shy of his 39th birthday. Samuel L. Jackson, he had a few small parts, but he really didn't get his big break until 43 in Spike Lee's Jungle Fever. Sam Walton, Walmart, we all know about that. He opened his first true Walmart at the age of 44. So then the other thing is, let's look at you. Let's look at other aspects of your life. Every one of you watching has done something that you've overcome something, you've reversed a situation, you've changed a circumstance, you've made some improvement. And you didn't do it in your 20s. You did it in your 30s, you did it in your 40s, 50s, 60s. Whatever age you are, you were able to overcome something and take a different direction. You've changed a career, you doubled your pay, you started a business that you wanted to start. And I'm sure other people told you you're too old, it's too late, don't worry about it, you're just stuck. No other aspect of our life do we get to a point, and this next slide will address that. We believe and we tell our children that we have the power to change and improve every aspect of our life. Money, hey, if you want to make more money, just start doing the right things. You can reverse your financial circumstances by doing a few things. Spirituality, hey, we talk about starting to go to church, or, you can repent, you can get baptized, you can get changed and save your life, and confess, and all those different kinds of things. With relationships, hey, if there's someone that you haven't talked to, that you're not in agreement with, talk to that person, change that relationship. Career-wise, you can change that. Parenting, if you like a better relationship or to improve your parenting, do that. Why is it with health that we just kind of throw our hands up and throw in the towel and give up our power with wellness? So again, relating that to other aspects of life, a lifestyle modification is possible in health just like it is in every other aspect of your life. So let me go out to, let me throw a few things when it really comes to lifestyle modification and how we need to think differently about some of the things that we probably have taken for granted, or maybe we heard about, or things that we think it's okay, moderation is good, a little bit won't hurt. Let's talk about sugar. They don't care about us. And when I say they, I mean the food industry. In some part, the regulators who are allowing all, the labeling, and the FDA and the USDA and all these kind of organizations. These folks aren't making decisions based on our health. They're making decisions based off of their financial bottom line. So let me give you a few facts about sugar that hopefully helps. It's used, and we talked a little bit about that with Dr. Brown as well in some of his Q&A. It's used to replace flavor when fat was removed. So all these processed foods that you see, which we'll talk about next, they pull the fat out and they've got to add sugar so it doesn't taste like cardboard. It's used to cover up salt or bitter taste. So they add salt to, soda, and they put sugar in to cover the salt. They add salt to bread. They add sugar to cover up the bitterness of the salt. So here's two things that I want you to know. One, it's bad. Added sugar is bad. And let me be very specific. I'm talking about added sugar. So sugar that has been added in addition to what as it grows or as it comes naturally. Added sugar is bad. And two, it's addictive. So there's two things that make sugar addictive, or two things that make anything addictive, and that's tolerance and withdrawal. So when you eat a lot of sugar, you get a dopamine response. So that's where that emotional eating comes in, where people, you sit down, you're having a bad day, and you open up a tub of ice cream, or, you see on the movies, they're popping the chocolates and all that kind of stuff to make themselves feel better because they get a dopamine response. Well, over time, the reward centers of your brain say, hey, listen, that's enough. I'm going to down regulate this. And now it takes, instead of 2 cookies, it takes 4 for you to get that same level of happiness. Instead of, a bowl of ice creams, it takes a bucket, to get that same response. So you build a tolerance just like you would a drug. Then you get withdrawal when you try to eliminate it. So consuming it creates a problem. Eliminating it will take you through a period of withdrawal. We don't really ascribe addiction to sugar because we just think of the hard stuff, the drugs, all those kinds of things. But sugar is just like that. So a few stats: 74% of packaged foods have sugar. So if it's not in the produce section, 75% of everything else in the grocery store when you go this weekend is going to have added sugar in it. On average, about 100 years ago, each person in this country consumed about 2 pounds of sugar per year. Now we consume about 152 pounds per sugar each year. That's because it's hidden in everything. And again, we think in moderation is okay. And we just add a little bit here and there, and that adds up. No one's perfect. I'm not saying anyone should go out today or tomorrow and say, if you have 1 grain of sugar, you can forget about it. The goal is to be conscious about it. And there's 50 plus names for added sugar. You may know it as, cane sugar, organic cane sugar, or high fructose corn syrup, or dextrose, or maltodextrose. It has all kinds of different names. And if you read the label, you'll see all these different things. And it basically is 10 different ways to put sugar in it, but they want you to see it and say, oh, okay, it's got all these other things, but it's only got a little bit of sugar. So again, we call it a craving or a sweet tooth, but ultimately for most of us, it's an addiction. And when you start thinking about it that way, then you start thinking differently about how you approach it. And I'll just give you another example. If you really saw sugar as a bad and addictive property and a bad and addictive substance, you treat it that way. If you knew someone who was addicted to heroin or crack, you wouldn't say, hey, look, man, just in moderation, man, just take 1 hit a week, treat yourself, hit that pipe once just to make yourself feel better after a bad day. Those aren't things that you would try to plan on. You wouldn't advise someone to do it. However, if it happens, hey, look, let's get you some help. I slipped up. I'm back on the straight and narrow. That's okay. That's not something that you want to plan on doing or use as a reward or think of in your mind as something that's beneficial for you to wind down. So the next thing is processed food. Really quick, fast doesn't mean convenient. Easy doesn't mean good. So fast and packaged foods are really made available for you to grab and eat on the go, maybe quickly prepare at home. But in order to do that, they've got to be stripped of a lot of the nutritional value and almost all the fiber so that they last in your cabinet and on the shelf in the store. Food that is easy to get may also be easy to overconsume. So the ease of access is really not for your benefit. It's really to increase the sales and revenue potential of the food companies. So processed food is another one of those things that you should look to modify your lifestyle and your behavior and your eating habits to move away from and move into real food. Things that come from the farm, or if you're going to eat meat, eat it from a farmed and butchered, source versus a processed form, like you see the hot dogs here and those types of things. So let me just give you a couple of examples that we already know how to do this. This already makes sense to us. Stealing is a fast and easy way to get money, but we don't necessarily advise it because there's consequences that come with it. Jumping off a cliff is a fast and easy way to get to the bottom, but it comes with consequences. Lying is a fast and easy way to get someone off your back, but we know that comes with consequences. The relationship suffers. Quitting your job is a fast and easy way to get some time off. If you're tired, or if you just want more time at home, just quit your job. You'll have all the time at home that you need for as long as you can keep your home. But we know that everything like that has consequences. Let me relate it back to children. We tell our children anything worth having is worth working for. I'm only just trying to get you to understand that things that are convenient and fast in all other aspects of our life are typically we're a little bit suspect of. Too good to be true. This sounds a little suspect to me. But when it comes to fast food and easy food and processed food, we just say, oh, how convenient. This is easy. They put it all in one box. You throw it in the microwave for 2 minutes and you got a full Thanksgiving dinner. God bless the food companies for making it so fast and easy for us. Use that same skepticism when it comes to your nutrition, your diet, and the things that you take into your body, because there are also consequences with that. The only difference is your body's controlled by natural law. So you can't control those consequences. You can't fool your body into doing things a certain way or processing or digesting food a certain way according to what you want. So the last thing I'd like to point out when it comes to thinking differently is dairy. This is an example of when marketing messages become law, they become fact. So if you think about the adage, milk does a body good, well, whose body and what good? In 2019, there was 7.43 billion US dollars spent on advertising just for dairy. Not because they really wanted, that wasn't $7.4 billion spent because they really care about you. They really care about me. They really care about our health. And they really are so concerned about the welfare and the longevity of every single person that drinks it. It's an opportunity to sell milk. So let me talk about a couple of things that we typically think milk is good for. First of all, is calcium. We always think, hey, milk is for calcium. Well, let me just give you an illustration here or just kind of point back to the source. Calcium is a mineral found in soil. It's absorbed into the roots of the plants. Cows get their calcium by eating these plants. You get the excess calcium they give off. So milk doesn't have calcium as an original source. You're getting pre-digested and excreted calcium that's left over from what the cow didn't want. There's plenty of calcium, very calcium-rich sources outside of drinking milk. Something else that I'd like to point out from the Arthritis Foundation, I know a lot of men, particularly when you get, if you've played sports when you're older and as you get, or younger, and once you get older and we start to get things like gout and arthritis and all these pains and joints that set in. One of the things that we don't realize is a diet high in saturated fats, which includes dairy. There's a lot of inflammatory properties of dairy as well. But particularly things like, heavy milks, cheeses, and creams, those are really big inflammatory items. That's from the Arthritis Foundation. Back to the question I think that the gentleman asked when we talk about what things can you take for this, instead of taking something for your arthritic conditions, another opportunity might be to modify your lifestyle so that you can then reduce the effects or the pains that you even have from it. So if I can stop the symptoms from arriving, I don't have to take any medicine to fix the symptom. A couple of other points that I'll throw out, estrogen. So I don't know if you all were aware, but I think it's very important that people know that commercial milk is produced from cows that are being milked long into their pregnancy. And a pregnant cow produces a lot of estrogen. So you're getting a lot of estrogen in your body just by taking in milk. Estrogen, if you didn't know, is something that both men and women produce, but both men and women have a different balance of how much testosterone and how much estrogen you should have. So once you become estrogen dominant, the body says, well, let me slow down my production of testosterone. So one of the things that I hear is, hey, once you hit a certain age, your body stops producing testosterone. Is that because you hit a certain age, or is that because you've created an estrogen dominant environment within your body? We don't realize that we're taking in a lot of extra estrogen just by taking in dairy, not because it was added in or anything like that, but just simply because the cow is giving milk while it's pregnant, it's producing estrogen, you're drinking estrogen. Gynecomastia, man boobs, that's another thing that is typically, excess breast tissue. So a lot of the conditions that we think are just happening because of something else is happening because of what we're doing. I'll talk about prostate. A study showed that men who consume 3 or more servings of dairy products per day had 141% higher risk for death due to prostate cancer, not just instances of, but death due to. Milk also contains a lot of things like IGF-1s, insulin-like growth factor 1. It's, again, inflammatory. It's also estrogenic. So when you look at the prostate, particularly for men, milk is not something that is favorable for good prostate health. So the last things I'll talk about, and we'll get to some Q&A. I know there's some other things in there that you all want to hear from Dr. Brown, and I'm certainly open to any questions that you have on anything general. What can you do now, today? First thing you can do is track everything you eat. The best way to make an adjustment to any lifestyle, behavior, or habit is to first be crystal clear about what it is you currently do. So again, I'll relate this to any other aspect of your life. If you're looking to have more money saved at the end of this year or 2021, you're going to have to take a look at every dime, every nickel that you've got coming in, and you got to track where that money is being spent. You can't spend, unconsciously and then consciously save. Same thing with at work. If you want to be more productive, you've got to be more cautious of your time. You're going to track your time, a to-do list, a calendar, whatever the case might be. You've got to protect the time and the limited resources that you have and know exactly where every minute is going, where every dollar is going. With diet, you've got to know where every calorie is coming in. Just by tracking that, it'll open your eyes. It'll be unbelievable once you start looking at exactly what you eat. You'll be surprised about how many calories you're taking in, how much sugar. Once you start reading labels or scanning it with a phone app like MyFitnessPal or something like that. Once you start paying attention to those things and not just mindlessly snacking, you'll be very, very surprised on how much improvement you can make just by doing that. The next thing is eliminate one thing at a time. So I'm a very big advocate of, as I mentioned before, the compound effect, habit stacking. It's great if you say, I'm going cold turkey, January 1st, New Year's resolution, new year, new me. I'm going in the kitchen, I'm throwing everything out of my refrigerator, and I'm buying all healthy stuff. If you can do that, that's fantastic. If you can stick with it, that's even better, and I wish you the best. Most people are going to do much better and stick to it much longer if you just get in the habit of eliminating one thing at a time. For two reasons. One, you might already be eating some stuff that's good. So if you eat a lot of vegetables, but you also drink a lot of pop, keep eating the vegetables, just start slowly getting rid of the pop. If you drink it 7 days a week, maybe go down to just the weekends. If on the weekends you drink it 3 times a day, just maybe once. And then all of a sudden you've gotten rid of that. Now you can look at something else. A month down the road, you've eliminated pop, you're still eating your vegetables, and you can look at anything else in your diet that you may need to get rid of. So one thing at a time, you will find that your body will get used to it. You'll get to the point where you no longer crave those items. Your body no longer needs those items. You actually may get to the point in a lot of things where if you were to reintroduce those items back into your diet, like pop or processed foods or fast food and all those different kinds of things, you don't like it anymore. You actually say, hey, I don't like fried chicken or fried this or whatever that. I need baked. I need to make chicken at home. I need to make it myself. I need to get organic this or whatever the case might be. So the last thing, join the resistance. No gym, no problem. I know we're in a unique situation with COVID. Some gyms are closed. People may be uncomfortable going. You may not want to get a gym membership. You may not want to go through that whole rigmarole of building a home gym. That's okay. At the very least, men, we need to understand that muscle strength is critical. It's not just for looks. In fact, it's less for looks than it is for health. We don't realize how important strong muscles are to our overall health. If you have a weak back, you have poor posture. If you have weak muscles, then it's really hard to hold your frame up. There's a lot of muscles that go into a lot of the different functions that we don't realize. Muscle is a good fat burner. So if you're looking at weight management, muscle burns a lot more fat or a lot more calories rather than any other organ in your body. Muscles are just calorie hogs. So that's the other thing. Resistance bands are a great way to strengthen and build muscle. There's a lot of great exercises you can do with resistance bands, but you have to get your body used to moving something, doing something, performing some movement that's heavier than what it's used to. So if you weigh 200 pounds and you do something where you're doing resistance bands, where you're doing maybe some squats that are 50 and you're doing what would be the equivalent of a 250 pound squat or exercise, your body needs to get used to doing more than what it has to do on a regular basis. And again, to relate that to regular life or to real life, that's what we talk about all the time anyway. You got to stretch yourself. You got to practice better and do more, practice with more than what you actually do, or what you actually have to deal with on a daily basis. To close out, I'm going to give you two things that are very honest, very transparent, and I'll be very clear about what you can expect. The first part is you might be alone. You might be the only one in your house or circle of friends to take it seriously. Do it anyway, lead by example. If you're waiting on someone else to do something first before you do it, are you going to, you're going to be waiting for a long time. Is there any other aspect of your life where you wait for someone else to do it? When you walk into your job, do you say, hey, I'm not going to start doing a good job until Tim, Jerry, and Joe start doing a good job? Other than that, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to risk my job and my livelihood until I see someone else do it. Do it for yourself. Don't wait on someone else around you. It's a solo sport. It's your health, by the way. You might be alone. Lead by example. Look better, feel better, speak better, and other people will follow you from there. The other part is it might be hard. Bad habits are hard to gain, but guess what? They're also hard to get. I talked about before in another video that I had where, no one picks up that first cigarette and smokes it and just thinks it's easy and smooth. You cough, and it takes a while to get used to a bad habit. A lot of us, when we grew up, our parents, our dads, gave us a beer at 7 years old and it was nasty. We may have thrown up. Now you might like it now, but when you first started, you didn't. So it's hard to get a bad habit, and it's also hard to break one. So it will be hard. Be patient with yourself. I'm just being honest. It's not an easy thing to do. It's simple, but it's not easy. I appreciate your time. My really main goal, again, is to help as many people as possible take control of their health and wellness. I make it relatable. I make it real. It's not always the information you may want, but hopefully it's what you need to inspire you to do a little something to feel better, to look better, and add some years to your life or quality of life to the years you have left.